Hello everyone and welcome to the very first episode of the CGarchitect podcast. I'm Ricardo Eloy, your host, and today we're excited to have Neil Griffiths with us from DBOX's Miami Beach studio. Neil is a key player in CGI and film production and has been with DBOX since 2010. He's worked on stunning projects like 432 Park Avenue and directed a film that won the 2023 3D Awards. Let's hear from Neil about his incredible journey and insights in the world of architectural visualization. Mr. Neil Griffiths, welcome to the CGarchitect podcast, man.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Every time I start an interview, I ask the most intelligent, most clever question ever. Like, who are you? What do you do? And how the heck did you get there?
Yeah, I'm Neil Griffiths. I am a partner at DBOX. I've been here for like 12 years now. Working back from that, the last 10, 11 years have been in the Miami studio. And I was in New York for a year and a half, and then I was in the London studio, which is actually where I started with DBOX. I got into that position, before then I was at a company called Visualization One, which was a great studio to start at. You know, there were some fantastic people that worked there. I've been pretty fortunate that everywhere I've worked, from like V1 to the London studio, New York, and then Miami, my coworkers have been extremely talented. And you know, in CG, you learn from the people around you, you learn from forums, you learn from the community. And I've been pretty lucky in that respect, that just been surrounded by great people. And, you know, been able to recognize that I should absorb as much of their knowledge as possible and kind of push on. And I got into CG when I was in high school. I was like 15, and me and a friend started making images in Photoshop. Just kind of trying to make things look cool. And we got into a little bit of a friendly competition and started like pushing each other. Like, he would do something that was better than what I'd done. It would make me a little bit jealous. I would go home and I would furiously work all night, not doing homework, trying to outdo him and trying to show off. And then we eventually started incorporating things like Bryce and Food Esprit and like the really basic early 3D software. You know, the chrome spheres over the infinite ocean and things like that. And we kept pushing each other, and it was a really good, like, friendly competition. And then after leaving high school, I then found out that you could actually do 3D as a job. And I was like, okay, I kind of want to do this. I need to find out where to do this and get into it.
And which year?
And so, yeah.
Which year was it?
It was 20 years ago now. I was, 17 years old. So I don't remember what year that was, but it was a while ago.
2003 or 4.
Yeah, something like that. I joined like V1 basically straight from high school. I reached out to them, and I was so young and like untrained, but for my age and what I'd done in 3D, the owner of the company was just like, you do seem enthusiastic and like you seem like you have promise, so I'll take a chance on you. You can come in for 3 months as kind of an apprenticeship, and we'll see if you like pick it up. So I was there for 3 months. I worked my ass off.
Unpaid?
My work
probably?
back then was so low it may as well have been. I was under the age of 18 in England, so it was like a definite like apprenticeship, and I was just a drain on their time anyway. It was, it was a fair arrangement. I was living at home with my parents, and after 3 months, it's a relatively short time for unpaid or low paid. I had learned enough where I could actually contribute like to projects, and they had a lot of housing estate stuff on, so just modeling old like red brick houses and things like that, and starting off on the basics. And I was there for like 7 or 8 years, and just
so you've been in this journey for almost 20 years or so right now.
Yeah.
And what difference do you see from when you began to today? Like, is the industry actually professional at this point? Do you think it's just the same?
There's a lot of things that have changed. I mean, I could talk about this for like an hour. I have very strong opinions about things like this, but I mean, on the basic sense, the software's so much more stable now. Rendering is so much faster and more immediate. It's so much nicer to actually like work. And I know from talking with Matthew, the CEO of DBOX, like their experience starting DBOX in like the late 90s, like there were three guys sharing a computer that cost more than a house, and like the amount of times it crashed and taking 12 to 24 hours for a render, it's I don't think I would have cut it in that form of the industry. I got in right at the curve of software becoming more stable, but it was still trash for like 10 years. Everything just crashed all the time. And now I can go like 2, 3 weeks without Max crashing. And that's only because I typed in a stupid number into the mesh smooth by accident, something like that.
Well, we've all been
So
there at some point.
yeah. So like the immediacy of being able to do the work, the amount that you can refine it, and how stable everything is now is a huge change for the better. Changes for the worse. I miss forums. You know, it used to be that the only place you could learn anything was joining a forum with a bunch of people, and everyone, no matter who they worked for, would like freely share knowledge. Um, I'm fortunate that at the studios I'm at now, you know, I have coworkers that I can chat to about that and get theoretical with, but I do miss there being like, you know, this Bible of just everyone's knowledge and thoughts and ideas being shared and written and documented and saved forever. Um, and you know, I think people are less free with that information these days as well. You see it in things like the Tyflow Facebook group. People are very open with information there because I think that captures the same kind of feel where it's new and it's exciting and it's changing so much that we kind of have to help each other out and everyone wants to lift each other up because there's that nice sense of friendly competition where if everyone does better, I will do better. Um, and yeah, it's still present, I guess. It's just the changing times.
But you said something interesting about the forums. I remember when I started back in the late 90s, the internet was not a thing. Honestly, I would have to go to the university's library to actually get something, a book or
Yeah.
a brochure or whatever on 3D, and it was most likely outdated. Like it would be like DOS 3DS Studio or 3D Studio as we called it at the time.
Yeah.
I remember I started on 3D Studio R3 for DOS, which is like it looks like ages ago. It feels like
Yeah.
ages ago, and the forums were actually a place where we could actually learn something.
Yeah.
And I do miss the forums day. I remember I used to come to CGarchitect like back in 2001 when it all began, and then it's like it was a really nice way to learn. And I think that maybe the Tyflow Facebook group is so helpful because people are in the start of that tool, as you said. Like
Yeah.
we were starting 3D back in the early 2000s, and then everybody was like, "Okay, can you do that? Are you able to like create a box or something? How did you do
Yeah.
that?" And we were all excited about the new technology, and I think that's happening with Tyflow right now, and with
Yeah.
AI
I think
in a certain
I think
extent.
partially I think partially as well it comes from people are more willing to share knowledge when they can recognize that all of the things they know came from a similar experience. So it's kind of just like paying it forward and paying it around. But I think possibly the shift is that there's a lot more people in the industry now. You can actually go to school to learn what we know and like go to university and be taught and pay for training. And I think if you've gone through that approach, then there's I think there's just like um, less of like an established way of like helping others by writing out something that took you like a month to wrap your head around, which you had to pay to learn. Whereas if you learnt that from someone else, just investing a bit of time for free, then you're more willing to kind of pay it forward and move it around like that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
the paid forward thing is maybe the most
yeah,
important thing here. Like when you're learning something new, like when you learn from another person and you're willing to pay it forward, that's what
yeah,
makes the industry so great. When it's great, that's what makes it so great. Now, you mentioned you're from the north of England, right? And now
yep.
you're living in Miami. You've been living in Miami for how many years?
A
12.
little over 10 years, yeah.
So,
Can't remember the exact dates.
how you like in Miami? I guess the weather is pretty similar, right?
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. Like being like I grew up in the north and I hated the winter. That was the one thing I disliked the most. But then I also had this idea that I wanted to live in New York. It was like a childhood dream, which I thought was wildly unrealistic and that I would probably never get to achieve. And then through my career, realizing that DBOX was based in New York and this was a company that was kind of like leading the way, it gave me something to work towards. And for a number of years, I was working towards like, I want to eventually be at DBOX. I want to be with those people. I want to work alongside them. I spent like 3.5 years making decisions in my day-to-day workplace with the idea that I would eventually, hopefully, get to DBOX. I would impress them one day. Um, and then eventually, once I got over there, I realized that New York is actually colder in winters than the north of England. And it was absolutely miserable. It's like minus 15 Celsius. And I
And
was,
it's totally hot during summer, right? It's unbearably hot.
yeah, it's as hot as Miami during the summer.
Yeah.
And the subways aren't air conditioned. New York's a wonderful city, but it's a tough place to live. It demands a lot from you. And so yeah, I did a year and a half, and then I sat Matthew down, the CEO, and I was like, I don't know if I was being lighthearted or not, but I was just like, I don't think I could do another winter here. I really don't think I'll get through it. And then he was like, well, we've actually been thinking of opening an office in Miami because we've been doing a lot of Miami projects recently. So if you'd like, I can keep you in mind for that so that when we do it, we can potentially have you go down there. And I was just like, consider me in. Like, fuck it.
Were you married
I'm in for the
already
adventure.
back then, or?
No. I actually met my wife at DBOX. She was hired in Miami to be the graphic design department. And so we met on the first day of work, like opening the office together. We became very close friends very quickly and kept our relationship secret from everyone for over 3 years. When I finally told Matthew, he fell off his chair in surprise.
But
Couldn't believe
how
that
are you able to do that? I mean, like you worked together like every day for 3 years, and nobody got a
it helps
hint.
that it helps that we're the type of people where when we're in work, we're at work. Like I'm in, and then I get like, everything's just about getting the work done. So we weren't. Both of us are like that, so it was very easy to kind of, just be very work focused. And I suspect our coworkers had an inkling, but they respected that we were trying to keep it private as well.
So it's like they
It was
pretended they didn't know, you pretended they didn't
yeah,
know, and that was it.
everyone just got on with work.
Now you mentioned that you guys had a lot of projects going on in Miami, and does the Miami office only get like Miami clients from Florida, or?
It varies a lot. I mean, when we first opened the Miami office, it was pretty much all Miami projects. But you can't wait around for stuff to come in if you've got people with things to do. So we've taken on projects in Phoenix, Arizona, and Austin, Texas. That was a really big project that's just been launching the last year. That was like a 3-year long project. Wow. It was absolutely massive in scope. And we've taken on other projects. We've taken on New York projects and worked closely with the New York team. Done some small things all over really. But yeah.
So and
we try
and do you think it's like it is justifiable to have like different offices in different states in the U.S. and the North American market specifically, or just like being in Miami is something that helps you get some sort of clients that wouldn't go to New York because maybe they feel like going to New York would be too expensive or too difficult or whatever?
I mean, it's the real reason why we opened the office was because we had a lot of clients based in Miami. So we already had those clients. The work was being done out of New York, and then having the local office meant that we could go to meetings and be there in person. There is something that's quite unique about living in the area where you're actually developing the images too, because it means that you're going to work every day and you're getting a sense for the quality of the light, the humidity of the air, the haze, like what happens to the colors. And I do think that being in that environment on a day-to-day basis, it makes it easier to make images that are appropriate of that place. I've definitely seen some people struggle to make Miami images. Like the first time they try and do an image that's set in Miami, it's they kind of get the saturation a bit wrong. They get the haze a bit wrong. Like it just you look at it and it just doesn't look like
It's not
Miami, even though it's
Miami.
got all the Miami features. Yeah, and it's they have to just travel there a bunch of times and like really get a feel for it, and then it all locks into place. So there's a definite benefit to being, in the environment that you're recreating digitally. And
And you get to understand the culture, right? Like you have
yeah,
a more. I can't. I don't think I could say warm culture in Miami, not because of the weather, but because of the Latin people that live there and all
yeah,
those influences.
yeah. There's also, I think the client's expectations are also like a big factor too. People play a little bit looser with the rules. Like in New York, a lot of New York images, they're very like dry one points. They're very much about showing you the investment and what that is. They aren't really about adding too much drama to the image or over glamorizing certain parts of it. There's obviously clients that are different all over the place, but in Miami they prefer to make the images more dramatic and showy, whether that's through lighting choices, camera choices, and things like that. And I think that's a representation of the culture. It's people are driving around in Lamborghinis. They're dropping large sums of money on these investments. They want to be wowed in a very short space of time. They want color and pizzazz and drama, even if it's not. They're not going to pour over it the same way a New York investor would.
So that's why we see so many difference between like when the GTA 6 trailer came out. Like it was so Miami, right?
I Yeah, there's a lot of details in that trailer which as respect to like the art team that they absolutely nailed. There's like things in Miami that you don't really notice unless someone points out to you, but because of the humidity, the clouds sit very low over the city. They're noticeably low, and the way that they pick up light from underneath in the buildings is something completely unique. And I would point that out to people of an evening, and once they notice it, they look up and they're just like, I've never been anywhere where the clouds look like this. And there's a lot of little touches like that they absolutely nailed, and it feels like they sent the art team there to just live there for a couple of years to get it
I
all
wouldn't
right.
doubt that,
Like
really. Like they probably
yeah,
did. At least a few people did that totally. And
yeah, yeah,
this is something that I remember I realized like a few years ago. I was actually in Orlando, Florida, and I remember I was driving at night with my family, and I saw the a full moon, and it was huge. And I had
yeah,
never seen the moon that huge, and that's when it clicked me, like, okay, nature is different around here than it is where I live.
yeah,
Of
yeah,
course, I live in Brazil, so I live in the other hemisphere, right? So it's supposed to be different because I'm damn far from it. But
yeah.
it's interesting to see that
You don't
things that you
expect it to
take for
change things
granted,
in those ways. Yeah,
like when you said like, oh, the clouds are lower, like I would never have guessed that if I had to. Even if my life depended on that, I would never have guessed.
yeah.
And that's
There's
something,
also a
and
really
people will notice. Even though they don't notice, they're noticing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. There's also something really unique with Miami where you have such localized storms. It's really easy to find like conditions where there's just dark black storm clouds, like completely black. But then everything you see in the foreground and the buildings you're looking at is being hit by this like lovely warm sun. And it creates this incredible contrast, and it's such a unique condition. I've seen people do CG images of this, where they've like recreated this, where it's like all storm clouds, but the sun is coming from behind. And every time they post them on the internet, someone's just like, your lighting doesn't make sense. You've done that wrong." And they try and like guide them out of it. But it has to be explained like this is a real thing that happens, more often in Miami and
And
places like that.
and do you
But
think that if you took an image like that and tried to sell it to the New York clients, you think they would like turn their faces or
I mean,
look down on you or something like?
Our Miami clients haven't bought into an image like that anyway, so they don't like storm clouds. It's ominous. It looks cool, but it's not a very good marketing image.
I
So
can
yeah,
see that. Now, speaking of looking cool, you guys won the 3D awards, right? with
yeah,
with the,
that was
with your film, and I remember you mentioning in the when you introduced the your film, you mentioned that you did the film with vignettes, that everybody loves
yeah.
vignettes. And why do you think people love vignettes so much? At least we do. I mean, I'm a sucker for vignettes. Honestly, like I always do, like the shot that my client paid for, and then another 100 shots
Yeah,
of vignettes. Like,
you
why do
get
you
those
think people
details
love
in.
it so much?
I think it taps into a kind of freedom in our work because like when you work on an image for a client, you know, you often get pushed towards the wide one point, and you know, you get your comments, you get your feedback, you refine it, you change the materials, and creating a marketing image is it's a very close collaboration with the client. Some people don't like that process; they don't like being told what to do. We understand it's, you know, it's part of the job. It's like we take great satisfaction and pride in getting the client what they want and getting those details right. But then the process of a vignette, you're just a photographer in a scene that you've built. Like you're finding those little details and celebrating them. And it's a purely creative process. It's, you know, there's no um, kind of like going out for rounds of comments. At least everyone knows that does vignettes as part of their like client offering. They wait until the images are almost signed off, and then you explore all of your cameras. You put them out to your client and say, "Would you like any of these?" And then the client just picks them, and then you just finish the image. It's it's a very, I don't know, freeing part of the process.
And
And so obviously, being able to do an entire film of just vignettes is
yeah, I
kind of
remember
an
when
interesting.
I watched it the first time I watched it that you guys submitted. I was like, I was really expecting those wide open shots at some point. Like, okay, there's this detail right here and that, and I was maybe subconsciously expecting it to open like to a very wide space or something like that, and it never did. And I was like, this is different.
Yeah,
And I
it's
think I didn't speak to to our judges of like of every submission. Of course, we couldn't. We had like over 1,510 submissions.
wow.
It was a lot, really. So I
Yeah.
couldn't discuss like every submission with them, but I was very curious about it. If anyone else felt the same, like, oh, it's not opening. It's like all vignettes, this is interesting because I didn't know it was allowed. Honestly,
Yeah.
like
So
I didn't know
that's
clients would allow me to do that.
that's what got us really excited about this, like the opportunity to do something a bit different. Because the client came to us, and the first brief from them was that we're pretty early in the design process. Our interior designer has these mood boards, like they've decided on a lot of details, and there's a lot of design elements, but we haven't refined like the wider spaces yet. But we want to announce with a teaser, like something to get people excited. And normally, when a client asks for like a teaser or something like that, we do like a single image, and it's just like a terrace, and it's dressed in the foreground with some nice, it's evocative, and it's like something's coming. Um, and they asked if we, you know, could go a little bit further. So we were looking through all of this mood board from the interior designer where they'd like loosely come up with like the shape of the chandelier and a bunch of other details. And then when we were looking at that, we were just like, you could just imagine this chandelier like fanning out and twisting. That was the first kind of idea we had. I was like, me and the guys in the Miami studio, we were just looking over everything on a Zoom call and just trying to throw out ideas and scroll through and being like, you could add motion to all of these. So then we developed the idea of the pitch, which was let's pitch a traditional architecture film where it goes through the normal steps of exterior architecture, like ground floor amenities. We go into the residences, and then we have the brand story. But it's all just told through these details. It's a pure teaser. Something is coming. It's beautiful. The details are incredible. It's got this incredible sense of like warmth to it, and it's a really good high-end project. But we never actually reveal it yet. It's,
And it looks high
and
end. It looks like really luxurious, right? That's the correct word,
Yeah, yeah.
luxurious. And
Yeah, so like it's got this rich, like,
yeah,
you
it,
know,
it, it
feeling to
feels
it all.
rich. That's like it feels like I can't afford it. Rich,
No.
right?
Yeah,
And you're not showing anything. And then the motion that you guys added to it, like, fans doing like that, and curtains and stuff like that. It gives life to the place without us actually seeing the place.
yeah, yeah. Without adding like movement to all of the shots, it would have felt too dry, I think. Like with just camera movements, it would have felt, I don't know, just a little boring. But then, yeah, that was like the scariest part of it because we came up with like the storyboard. We got them to approve the order. We described how we might add motion to a couple of the shots, and then they loved the idea. And we sat down, and then we went, okay, so we have 6 chapters. Each of them's 10 seconds, and this is our kind of image mood board for each of these. Now we need to find motion for all of these. And so we went on this like process where like everyone in the Miami studio jumped onto it, and we didn't have scenes, we didn't have anything built, so we would literally open an empty Max file, take a look at one of the references of just like how some wood meets a corner of the spa. We would build it in 3D like very quickly, and then try and make it move in a way that's interesting, and then export a bunch of play blasts. And through this process, we made like hundreds of just like loose things, no thought to order or structure. And then we would take that into an edit and start figuring out if they like fit next to each other. And then in looking at 2 next to each other, it's like, well, they don't work now, but if we do this to them, they will. So then we would look back for another pass. And we had this working process where we just went around in kind of circles where as things slotted into the edit and into the spaces where it made sense, we would then go back and refine them to try and make them work better. And sometimes someone would come up with a new idea that's really good, but then it now doesn't work with the idea that came before it. So then it's like, okay, which one do we want to change? Like we have to then go back with this one and try and find a way to make this, work and do our due diligence on it. So it was a very loose working process. It was a terrifying working process, to be honest. I've never worked like that before. It was a lot of just diving into the unknown, but it was also really exciting because it's in the early stages of my career, and I know I could speak for every one of my coworkers. You take on a big project, and it's very exciting because you don't know exactly how it's going to turn out. There's a little bit of fear there, but you just put everything you have into it, and then it comes out better as a result. And when we've been doing interior renderings, we know what we're doing with them. So it was nice to take on a project which gave us a little bit of energy to try and like prove that we could pull it off. And
And the funny thing is that it came out very interesting and very different, and it's distinct in a way, and it's not like you guys reinvented the wheel. Like we all love vignettes, as we said before, but
yeah,
it's just like it's captivating. Honestly, I remember
it,
again watching it for the first time. I was like, damn, like really, I didn't know what to expect next because, as I said, the wide shots never came.
yeah,
It's like, what's going on? And then
but
you have like, and that's the fun part. I think that you actually explore the architecture, like when you have like a
yeah,
spiral staircase and you actually get to feel that movement of the staircase without having to show like every nooks and like the nooks and crannies and every bolt that goes into building the staircase like we often have to do, because
yeah,
that's the most frustrating part of artifice, at least for me, like having to show like everything at once.
yeah. I mean, that's something that we've definitely in the last few years. It's something that influenced the decision making on this film. But like with all of our clients, um, they often want to fit 3 images worth of image into a single image, and we now have a great working relationship with many of our clients where we've been able to prove that it's a better way to do it by allowing an image to become 2 separate images, like not trying to tell the whole story in a single moment. And this film is a good example of the whole story of this project as this teaser only exists when you consume all of the shots in order. Like just one small section of that or just any one individually, it doesn't tell enough of a story to be used for marketing. but by allowing it to exist as many separate things in sequence, it actually does what it needs to do.
Yeah, it's pretty much a puzzle. Like
Yeah.
it won't work if you start just placing the pieces like with no order. Like it will eventually come together, but like
Yeah.
it's not the way it's meant to be done, right? And
Yeah.
that's I think that's the beauty of it. Now, Neil, one thing that right in the beginning you said that you started working at a very young age and that you wanted to work at DBOX at some point. What kind of advice could you give to a youngster at 17 that wants to work at DBOX today?
I mean, I'm just going to boil it down to something really simple. And it's just like be hungry, Like if you're going to get up and spend 8 hours a day doing something, give it everything you have, because otherwise you're just kind of wasting time. And that's something I have to remind myself of constantly, like work gets kind of tough and it drags you down and you start going through the motions for a couple of weeks of just turning up and doing what you're supposed to. But then other times you just change your mindset a little bit and it's so much more fun. And the work you do is better as a result if you just wake up and like challenge yourself every day and like try and maximize what you get out of each given day. And I think anyone that's like young that can do that consistently, that like has a goal, wants to be part of a team doing incredible work and wants to potentially like raise the bar of what work is done in the future themselves, then just remind yourself that's what your goal is every day and kind of work towards it.
Cool. Awesome. Neil, thank you so much for being here. This is our first episode of the CGarchitect podcast.
Yeah.
It's a new project, and I'm delighted to have you here. It was truly an honor for me.
Thanks so much. And yeah, I feel like we could talk for hours more about various things.
Well,
yeah.
If you guys that are listening to this podcast, to this episode, you want to hear more from Neil, just, drop us a line, drop in the comments. Like, tell us that you liked it, and then we can have Neil again. Right? Like, I'm inviting you live here, so you can't say no.
Yeah. I love talking about work. You get a couple of drinks in me and I have to stop myself from talking about work. I genuinely, if I'm in the right mindset, I care about it too much. It's what gets me up in the morning. So
and
maybe that's a bit sad, but
that's probably one of the secrets to happiness. Honestly, right? If you don't like what you do, but what the hell are you doing in the first place?
Yeah, of course. So.
All right, so thank you so much for being here, and for you guys that are listening to us, watching this video, thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.